Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
What do you have planned for your birthday celebration?
We are,
When do they set up the petting zoo? Is that first
I
thing
know,
tomorrow, or is
right? There
it?
should be. I mean, there's a meteor shower, so I feel like that's
Okay,
probably,
that's something.
and it's like 70 degrees and sunny. So
All right,
also amazing. Like clearly I did something right this year.
right. What are
The
the leaves
gods,
like?
they're unreal. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I
And I
found
don't get
driving
into that
yesterday.
stuff, but it
Mm.
is amazing. So to that point, we are going to um explore the Leelanau Peninsula tomorrow. Do a little color tour in my dad's Jeep with the top down, some Fleetwood Mac
Oh,
going.
very nice. I feel like your mom would be the kind of person who would use the phrase leaf peeping.
No.
No, okay.
But I could teach it to her and perhaps she
Oh
would.
my God.
I've
I
never
mean,
heard the phrase. Did you just coin that phrase?
you've never heard leaf peeping before?
No, that sounds
Oh,
filthy. And it
New
sounds like,
England is rife with peepers.
well, see, we don't peep in
I
Detroit
see.
or in
You
Michigan.
go, you leaf peep,
We do a color tour.
you get some of the sap right out of the tree where they've tapped them.
No, we do a color tour and we drink some cider and eat some donuts.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
It's interesting. This reminds me a lot and brings me back to the times early on in the life of the show.
Yes.
You remember our conversation with ghost hunter
Ken, yes.
Ken. Thank you. I
Hmm.
all of a sudden blanked. And one of the things that we talked about him was that woman from Ireland who married a pirate
Yes.
ghost, and then they
Yes.
got divorced because of, I think it was irreconcilable differences, if I'm
I
not
think it
mistaken.
was. Yes.
So there's a couple in North Texas, in Gainesville, um, who own a house that they owned it as a real estate property.
Okay.
So you would rent it out for,
Hmm.
you know, um, and they have found of all of their properties, this one, yes, it is sort of a revolving door. People say 6 months and then go. Um, so after 10 different tenants move out in less than 2 years, one of these tenants mentions in passing, you know that house is haunted, right? So they go, no, I didn't do that. Know that. They still can't really, they don't get any sign of all of this.
Okay.
Then they are there for a little bit of time themselves staying, and the wife, Linda, is taking a shower,
Mm.
and she heard a dark figure in the bathroom whisper, looking good.
Now, that's
So,
the kind of ghost I want.
right. So she gets out of the shower, makes some remark to her husband, and says, what are you talking about? So these ghosts are not only existent, but they're also a little randy.
I know. And
This house,
complimentary.
I know, this house was built in 1840 and used to be a bordello.
Oh, this is amazing.
So he says several people have recorded EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, which is really
Mhm.
where we need to get Ken, where
Yes.
the ghost can be heard talking dirty in the house.
What?
Oh baby, yeah, Hill said, mimicking what has been heard. Yeah, I like it like that.
Wow. But this doesn't sound like 1800s sort of dirty talk. This sounds like late
Okay,
90s, early 2000s dirty talk.
right, but here's the thing.
Even looking good, like that doesn't fit.
Oh, so the last time you were in an 1880s bordello, they were talking differently than that?
Yes, they were.
I just feel like you're
There's
missing
no
the.
like milady or anything like that.
This was the West. This was the
You
Old West.
strumpet.
Everybody was wearing
That was
spurs,
right. Why
and
did they say strumpet?
Miss Kitty was there. I
Where
don't
is
know.
Miss Kitty?
I see. I'm thinking Deadwood, and you're thinking.
I'm watching
I don't know what you're
1883.
thinking. Okay, I just. Anyway, I thought you'd be more excited by this.
I'm very excited by it. I want to go there.
Everyone loves erotic ghosts.
And yeah, erotic ghosts that are complimentary. that
Right.
lived in a bordello. That's everything I would want out of paranormal activity.
Right. And clearly
Mhm.
it makes the idea of haunting seem not the worst thing in the world.
This is the point. All I was saying is perhaps the currently alive people are perhaps misquoting the ghosts, or perhaps
Mm,
there are some ghosts that weren't necessarily from the bordello, but perhaps are from a more recent era. That's
I
all
see.
I was saying.
Okay. Ghosts are ghosts. The house also apparently has a murder room where
Oh,
numerous people walk in and say, I can see a body lying on the floor in the middle of the room.
well, maybe they're not
So
actually dead. Maybe they just had a really good time with a fellow ghost, and that's
I
the
don't,
little like
yeah,
petit more, right?
I guess. I mean, I would say, I'm just going to keep going over, right past your French there. Um, as long as it's not in the rec room,
Whatever.
um,
It wasn't even meant to be French. It's
I,
just the
I,
phrase.
I know. But I think as long as it's not like your rec room or your TV room, all right, keep the guy
Right.
lying in the middle of the dining room. Who
I
cares?
mean, why not? As long
Yeah,
as it's not oozing blood,
yeah. And if it is,
fine.
just throw down a towel, like a bounty.
Nice rug.
Yeah, throw a pillow,
Mhm.
something.
Why not?
To the layperson, you might proclaim you've seen one gopher hole, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is there more variation to it that I just need to go to the museum to fully experience and appreciate?
Yeah, actually, it seems like a lot of people do. So there are literally thousands of pictures of this thing online, and lots of people look at it before they come out to the museum. But once they get there, they say that they are truly they had an experience that they weren't expecting. So, of course, there are a bunch of gophers. They're taxidermied gophers. It's ridiculous, but that's part of the charm. It's absolutely ridiculous. But each of these dioramas actually tells a story, and it's not just the story of rural Canada, rural Alberta, but it's specifically of that town, which just does happen to reflect rural North America, period. And the different economic things that have made the town suffer. Yeah, it used to be a thriving, busy little place. And once they pulled out the railway lines, just which honestly is systematic right across North America, then the town suffered and it basically started dissolving on itself. So this was a last ditch effort to bring in tourism to help local business. So it was supposed to be a 5-year project. It's now on 27 years, and almost all of those businesses have collapsed. There's nothing else in this town except for this silly little museum. But for whatever reason, it really speaks to people's hearts and imaginations. And yeah, looking at a 2D picture online is wonderful, but once people take the whole thing in, there's really something special to it.
No, it's even online. So one of my greatest fears are dead animals. I have nothing against hunting. I have nothing against taxidermy, but it freaks me out. I
Sure.
cannot stop looking at your gophers. I'm obsessed with them. They are the cutest things I've ever seen. I feel
They
like they're
really
still
are.
alive. The queen was amazing. The wedding, all of it. I have gotten nothing done because I just keep going back to see them because I feel like they're my little friends.
Yeah, they are. I don't come by this completely out of the blue. My parents helped build the museum. They were empty nesters, and it kind of became a huge deal for them. But it is a nonprofit. My mom ran it for 22 years. She had to step down a couple of years ago. She had brain surgery, and she just doesn't feel comfortable talking to a lot of people anymore because their words get jumbled up. Mine do all the time anyway. It doesn't bother
Mine
me.
too.
Anyway, so it was other ladies from the nonprofit running it when COVID hit, and they're all seniors, and they're not 65-year-old seniors. They're seniors. So they were just going to shut it
And I'm
down
sure
and
they
wait
love being
everything out.
referred to as that.
Well, most of them weren't around to hear it.
Again, it's better than the alternative.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been
I
called
like to
worse.
say they're not 65.
Right.
Anyway, so when COVID hit, of course, that was the target population. So they were just going to shut it down and wait it out. I grew up in that little town, and it was a magical little place. It was like growing up in Mayberry. And honestly, there's nothing left to it. So I know when something closes, it doesn't open back up again. So I begrudgingly took it over. And yeah, my brother and I have resentments about this place. It's like the third child born late in life that got more attention than we did.
Yes.
And and honestly, everything gets disrupted for it. People will call on Christmas morning when we're opening packages, and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, but I just drove 3 hours to see this museum, and I thought I just," and everything stops, and they go up to this museum to let people in. I don't know, it's crazy, but find something else to do on Christmas, folks. But anyway, yeah, it really speaks to a lot of people, and they love it. And I don't.
It's
I
fair.
don't mind the Gophers. The Gophers are fine. I hate the whole idea of the museum. It's taken up a lot of our lives. But I really love the stories that come out of it. And I found myself remarkably touched by how close a lot of people feel to these stuffed rodents. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What is it about the museum that you think does make it speak to people more than others?
Well, first of all, it's hilarious. It's really very funny the way that the gophers are posed, the dioramas they're situated in. They're reflective of the businesses that used to exist, the people that some are still very much around, the historic events that happened in the town. So it really is the story of everybody. It's everybody's grandfather, it's everybody's uncle, it's everybody's aunt. It's you, just represented as a gopher. And of course there's little jokes, little Easter eggs hidden in all the dioramas as well. So I mean, you could go through there very quickly, be in and out in 5 minutes. Some people are spending hours in this tiny little place because they're catching all the things in the diorama. And there's little treats hidden in there everywhere. So I think it's that, and yeah, I think gophers themselves, so they're technically Richardson ground squirrels, but but yeah, people, they interact with them. If you see them out in a field, people are trying to feed them, they're trying to goad them to come a little bit closer. They have a connection. I think they're a very highly social creature, even when they're stuffed with glass eyes.
Yeah.
So were your parents gopher people beforehand, or did they just never get into golf?
They did get into golf. Just not hardcore. No, I think so what actually happened is, again, this was a very thriving, bustling community at one time. And it was picture perfect. It was a beautiful little place. We had all kinds of restaurants, stores. It was busy. So it's a town of 200 people. It's never really grown or shrank much. One farmer owns everything around it, so it can't really expand. Now, for a town of 200 people to have one grain elevator would be astronomical, but Torrington had 4. It's completely unheard of. So it's a true testament to how important agriculture and farming is to that area. So yeah, they with that, trucks and trains were constantly coming into town, bringing with it a huge influx of people almost every day of the year. So early 1990s, the CPR decided to decommission those railway lines that came into that small town and thousands of others right across Canada. As such, they basically destroyed those communities and their way of living. So yeah, when the tracks were down, the grain elevators, they fell, and they amalgamated into larger centers around us that still had train tracks. And mid 1990s, the Alberta government was realizing the slow, painful death of rural Alberta. So they offered a one-time $9,000 grant to any small community that could come up with something touristy or kitschy, to bring in people to help support the local businesses. So we have a lot of other things that happened at that time. Most of the towns that got that grant did the big roadside attractions. And Torrington itself, just a group of really concerned citizens, they got together, they threw out ideas trying to save what was left of their rapidly disappearing town. Nothing stuck. So at the end of their third and final meeting, they're just getting ready to throw in the towel when one lady shouted out, and honestly, she was just being sassy. And she said, "Why don't we stuff gophers? We've got enough of them." And everybody laughed. Then they stopped laughing and they built a museum.
How many gophers live in the museum?
There are actually, we just had I think they call it a Royal Rumble, where a huge car crew comes through. They did like an Amazing Race kind of thing where they had to count the gophers. And even though all of our literature says 79, there were 82.
Ooh, some
Whoa.
Yeah.
behind the scenes breeding
Controversy.
going
Exactly.
on.
There's some
Yeah.
behind the scenes gopher smuggling. Yeah, I went and counted after they were done, and there were 82. Don't
That's
tell them though,
amazing.
because
No, there's no need to reprint the
There's no-
material. That can
Yeah,
be
no.
like an extra, I don't know, you get a prize if you count them and verify or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a favorite?
I do. I really love. We have a First Nations display, and I just love it. I think it's really beautifully done. It was done with a lot of historical accuracy to the teepees. Not necessarily what the fellow's wearing, but he's got a loincloth. It's hard to dress gophers. Getting pants on them is difficult. So they opted with a loincloth. And I mean, honestly, the reason why I love it the most is because my dog's baby teeth are used around his neck as his little necklace. My dog's no longer with us, so I love it that he's there in some way. I know that's a little odd, but anyway, it's special to me for that reason. And of course, we get a lot of First Nations people and Métis people coming in, and they are really thrilled to be represented. And I think especially at this time of reconciliation, that it's really important to have that. Now, I have been struggling for the last couple of years to find the proper words and sentiments to put above it. But yeah, I really think it's important to have that. Alternately, my dad did one gopher. He helped on a couple, but there's one that he did all on his own, and it's a fisherman, and that's what he loves to do. And so yeah, I love that one too.
That's amazing.
Do you have revolving exhibits? Like, do you have the Jurassic Park, but with gophers come through, or is it sort of the museum is what it is and it very rarely changes?
Yeah, no, they used to change them out, but everything is hardwired on the wall. So when they changed them out, it was difficult on the building. It is a heritage building. And then it was also difficult on the displays. So they stopped doing that. And also, and again, this is crazy, but when they would change them out, people would come in. Now they were bringing in their friends and families from overseas, from out of province, from out of wherever. They had visitors. They'd bring them in to show them their favorite gopher, and it wouldn't be there. And they would get quite distressed.
Oh no.
And very upset that their favorite gopher wasn't there. Alternately, as I said, everything in there represents that town in one way or another, what it used to be. So they would come in and be like, well, where's my grandfather's homestead? Where's the store that my aunt ran? Where is the post office that my neighbor used to work at? And so we decided to basically take out the ones that were, I guess, a little bit not necessarily more fun, because the ones that are there are fun, but the ones that didn't have a direct link to the town itself. Except for we do have a jungle in there. We probably haven't had a jungle in a couple million years, but it's a really cool display and it's hugely popular. So we keep that one in there, but everything is basically around. So you would have seen a Jurassic Park area one, and because we have the Badlands so very close to us, it's only about a 20-minute drive east, and there you are, dinosaurs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Little dinosaur gophers would be amazing.
Have you thought of paying tribute to Canadians of note in the museum in gopher form? I'm thinking, your Michael J. Fox, your Neil
Absolutely.
Youngs, your
Shania
Michael
Twain.
Bublé's. Oh, good one, yeah.
Actually, we're right now, so this museum, as small as it is, has been completely self-sufficient for 27 years outside of that initial $9,000 grant. So the board that existed, really, they didn't want to change anything. They didn't really want to, they were happy with the way things are. I mean, people are still coming this much later, so they weren't really worried about having people not being repeat visitors or not first-time visitors. The place is pretty busy during the summer anyway.
That's amazing.
So yeah, they didn't want to do that. However, I've been in there now. This is my third season. If I'm going to run a gopher museum, it's going to be the best darn gopher museum I ever did run. So I'm applying for grants now to do an expansion. So when I first called home, I was traveling and I called home. My parents were like, hey, we're building a gopher museum. So naturally I was like, dear God, no.
Like, wait, what?
It's hard enough coming from the sticks, but then you come from the sticks of the Gopher Museum. I seriously thought it was the end of my social life.
Little did you know.
Yeah, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if it's because I was clubbing a lot at that time or if because I love them so much as a kid, but I've been obsessed with making the Village People. And then if I make the
Yes.
Village People, I have to make Kiss. And then I have to
Of
make Freddie
course.
Mercury with little leather yellow pants. And,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
Elvis and Thriller. Like, let's do Thriller with a
Oh,
Susan Love, right? So I would really
you
love to
should
have
do
a
a
whole pop
whole,
culture section.
yes, you
Yeah.
could do
And
a
something that
whole
we can
Live Aid.
exactly.
Like
Oh,
all
Yeah,
of the
I don't
Live
know
Aid
about Neil
performances.
Young. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm actually actively working right now on doing William Shatner. So
Oh,
oh,
which leads you right,
Vulcan.
of course, to doing Michael Myers, because
Well, we have a town, so it's about 2.5 hours south of where we are called Vulcan. And when that grant came up,
oh,
they did the whole Star Trek thing. They got Leonard Nimoy. They did all that. So I'm gonna do William Shatner because I don't think
yes.
he's properly represented.
He's got a
mm,
little more swagger too.
Yeah, that's true.
Little
Yeah.
Kirk swagger.
I
That's
mean, he went for the Green
amazing.
Ladies. Who knows about the Gophers?
Right? I mean,
oh,
come on. That's amazing. Oh, I really
that's
want to see a little like Gopher Queen. I want to see a little Brian May, his locks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
now you said board. There's a board of directors of this museum.
Yes.
How big is the board?
Oh gosh. At various times it has been up to, I don't know, 12, 15 people. Right now it's sitting at about 5. So we're at bare minimum right now.
amazing. How does
If you are
one
looking for Americans who have not been to Alberta ever, but love
but would love to?
Gophers,
Yes.
yeah, please send us an application.
Yes.
You know, we have a Gopher museum. We'll take anybody.
It's so cool.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. Right. Well, and what is the best way to get, like, where, if you're coming to Alberta and you want to make sure you go to the Gopher Museum, what lesser things should you see? Like, what should you plan your trip? Because I know you're in the middle of, you know,
Yeah.
not the most populous area.
Sparsely, yeah.
But if I have to
Actually,
say,
you know, we're not too bad. We're kind of right between Red Deer, which is a city in itself, although a smaller city, and Calgary, which sits at about 4 million, but a lot of people go to Calgary.
yeah,
So I would
Yeah.
say that our biggest demographic are people that are going to or coming from Drumheller. So typically
Okay.
they're coming from Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, and they come through this little town on their way to Drumheller. So that is our biggest amount of traffic. And of course, Drumheller, dinosaurs.
Right.
Dinosaurs are really
Yeah.
cool. Although I do have a lot of people that say they went to that museum and they had a better time at ours. You know, I'm not
No,
throwing shade or anything.
it's totally come for the
No.
Gophers, stay for
Yeah.
the dinosaurs. I mean,
Actually, it's shocking. I'm amazed all the time at how many people from all over the world come to this tiny little place. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I had a fellow from Egypt and a fellow from Libya. Now, traditionally, those people don't get along so well, but they came, they were best friends. They put a pin in our map at the same time. It was lovely. Yeah.
see,
Bringing
bring
people
everybody
together.
Yes,
Yes.
one
Exactly.
gopher
Oh.
at a time.
Yeah.
The Olympics display from social media is also
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah, great. Actually, there's a great story with that. So
Oh,
we do have another fellow in there. His name is Albert Gopher. So when Vancouver did their Olympics in 2010, they, there's always a pavilion with things from the host country. So the Vancouver Olympic Committee was thinking what represents Canada best. So naturally, they thought of the small town in the middle of the sticks and dead gophers.
yes.
So they asked us
course.
to make that display specifically for them, which we did. And he
Amazing.
spent 3 months of his life in Vancouver hobnobbing with celebrities, dignitaries, politicians, and athletes. And since then, he's become our gopher to go. So he's the only one that's not really on the wall and is a fixed display because he does travel to all kinds of conventions and events. And in conjunction with that, we did the Olympic one. And when the Olympic torch has run through Alberta, it's crazy. They have stopped in this tiny little town and held a great big party.
That's
So yeah,
amazing.
it's a tiny little town that nobody's ever heard of, but it's got some really deep fingers that reach out.
When you
That's
and
so
you
cool.
said that the Olympic gopher is the one that goes out and kind of does the public, kind of the public facing
Yeah.
gopher of the museum.
Yeah.
Does he do like shopping mall openings and stuff? What's his kind of social calendar like?
Shopping malls are a bit of a dying breed, but
You
yeah,
know,
they
but you
haven't
get the gist
actually.
of it, Laurel. Come on.
Yeah, no, okay, I'm sorry. Actually, we have two really popular shopping malls that are constantly growing,
See,
but the
we're
rest are all
trying to
going
move
away.
some right here. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, the board, so again, the board in the last few years haven't done a heck of a lot of anything. So I'm starting up a lot more promotions and doing more fun things with the Gophers. Their demographic was completely different than my demographic. We have some very different things happening. It's just it's all on me. I don't get paid. It's a lot of work. Plus I have a real job and a real family, and I
course.
decided to go back to school, which is ridiculous. So
Oh,
yeah,
I mean,
because
you
if
may
you're
as
going to
well
run a
just,
Gopher museum, you need to
yeah,
take museum classes.
you do. Of course.
Mhm.
That's amazing. And if you're gonna, just pile everything on, just truly pile everything on. It's the only way to do it.
Nobody needs sleep.
No, sleep is way overrated. You might miss something. This is how we feel. That's amazing. We need to go. We just need to go be there. We
We
need to go
do.
do something so spectacular and worthy in the town that there are little versions of us in the museum someday. This is my new goal, is someday we have to have enough of an impact in Canada that we deserve Gophers.
Please, be amazing.
I don't know what that's going to take,
I don't
but
know.
we're
I
gonna
know
get
somebody. I
started.
can hook you up.
I know. Amazing.
So where does the museum go from here? You sort of, I mean, it sounds like you sort of reluctantly took on this legacy,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And it sounds like you're looking to expand it and get bigger and spread the word.
Yeah. No disrespect to the former board, including my parents. But this place has been run like a hobby
Sure.
for for a couple of decades. So initially when it was built, it was owned by the town, and the town helped fund everything. So they were a $2 entry fee. And my mom is on two different documentaries one of them has won awards at Toronto International Film Festival. And she's literally saying, it's $2. It'll always be $2. It'll never be more than $2. That's a lovely sentiment. It really is, but it's not realistic considering the price of insurance, the price of heat, the price of electricity. So when I took it over, I changed it to by donation, and that has certainly fared for us much better. But yeah, so we're starting with little things like that, basically boosting the bank account that was pretty empty. We are fixing the buildings. So they are both heritage buildings. One is a one-room schoolhouse, so it's about 100 years old. The other is one of the grain elevator offices. It stands at about 80 years old. So neither were meant for the sheer amount of traffic that this ridiculous little museum gets. So they are suffering. They desperately need some love. So my first goal is to get both of these buildings repaired and stabilized. They're sinking a little bit into the ground. Secondly, I want to put on an expansion. Next summer I plan on having Gopher mini golf, just because I like mini golf. So we're going to do that. We just basically add a few more things that'll help keep people around. We already have a walking tour of our fire hydrants. We've turned all of those into Gophers, so they all have their own backstories, love interests, family dramas, etc. So it's about a 20-minute walk to keep people in town, but there's nothing else in town anymore. So that used to be a great way to have people stop and visit the restaurant and maybe go to the pub for a beer, or use the convenience store, but almost none of that exists anymore. So yeah, I do plan to maybe put in a little dairy bar, a little ice cream shop, snack shop, just things that and largely that's because I have had 3 children that were small at one time, all in the same vehicle. There is nothing more torturous than driving around with hungry children.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to make sure people are fed. We're referring them to other towns all the time, and it's a shame we can't keep them in our town. So yeah, we have a huge economic net that gets cast, just not particularly where we are.
Yeah,
Makes complete sense.
that's amazing.
This is wonderful.
This is amazing what you're doing.
Yeah,
This is like, not just because it's so fun and clever and
Which it is.
Adorable and hilarious, but you're literally like saving people, you're saving the economy, you're bringing people to your area, you're bringing ice cream back. I mean,
Bringing ice cream
it's-
back. There's
that's
And you're
amazing.
there's an
preserving the
important
history of
thing.
the town too.
Right,
Like there's an actual
exactly.
historical preservation
Yeah.
happening.
And giving people a way to learn in a way that's super fun and digestible. So it doesn't feel like, oh, there's a history lesson.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I really take from it, so I mentioned before that what I really liked were the stories that I was getting out of it. We had one fellow, apparently he had brought in tons of friends over the years. Anytime he had a visitor from out of town, he would bring them to the museum. So he was coming probably half a dozen times a year. He lived in Calgary. So that's about an hour drive for him. He passed away this summer. So 4 of his friends brought him out to the museum one last time. And
Wow.
so I love these stories. I love them.
Yeah.
They had a picnic. They toasted some wine. They played his favorite ABBA songs, and they sprinkled his ashes there. And I mean, wow. I mean, it doesn't mean that much to me, but those stories, those are gold. Another fellow was coming from Edmonton into Calgary. He had terminal cancer. So he was given 3 months to live, and so he was on his way to the Tom Baker Cancer Center in Calgary. He had found a treatment that was supposed to be very, very successful in treating his former treatment. It was at the Mayo Clinic. It was going to cost him over $800,000 to receive that treatment. So the Mayo Clinic, the drug company, and the Tom Baker worked together to bring it up to Calgary for him. That's what he was on his way to do, and he wanted to stop at the Silly Gopher Museum because he has such beautiful memories of being there with his children and with his parents, and that's where he wanted to stop. And you know, people have gotten engaged there. I've had so many Tinder first dates there.
That's awesome.
You know, during the pandemic, of course, so many people came for their honeymoons because they couldn't get to the cool places they wanted to go, like Belize or Mexico or Italy. It has touched people in a way, and it's for those stories that I think it's important to remain. So yeah, we have a massive LGBTQ community, a huge amount of people of different races, different political affiliations, different cultures, and they normally might be afraid to leave the city because they're coming to this tiny little place, and of course they're thinking it's pretty backwaters hicks, and they're expecting us to be in overalls with pitchforks and, you know, the whole Deliverance theme song playing in the background. And they come there and they realize that maybe they had some preconceived notions, and they come because they're curious about this museum and they're having fun, and they're with some of those people that are wearing the overalls or the pitchforks, because those people exist. They exist everywhere, though, not just in the country. But they come in there, and those people are all together. And outside those doors, those people may never get along and they may never speak, but inside that museum, they're laughing together and they're having conversations. And that's why this place is important.
To find their hours and for more information on the world-famous Gopher Hole Museum, check out their website, worldfamousgopherholemuseum.ca.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?